Just heads up.
Yeah. Okay. If I go on the streets of New York and if I play this game, fill in the blanks, and I ask people to add a word after healthcare is, what do you think? What would be the response? In most of the cases, probably people will say extremely costly. There'll be very few instances when people will say affordable, awesome, innovative, and these kind of nice adjectives they will use. And this is the reason why we are hosting this panel today, to talk about affordability and innovation in the healthcare space. Why healthcare is not affordable? What are the initiatives that big hospitals, big healthcare practitioners are taking to make healthcare affordable? What kind of innovations, whether it is AI, ML, blockchain, robotics, are disrupting this space? Either they are changing the face of this industry, or they are making healthcare extremely affordable for every citizen of the world. Hi, this is Pankaj Gupta from EthAum Venture Partners. We are a deep tech accelerator and fund based out of Singapore with approximately 90 startups in our portfolio. These are AI, ML, blockchain, IoT, robotics, AR, VR kind of startups from different parts of the world, stages, sectors. Soapy is one of the portfolio startups that we onboarded in January 2023, and Max, CEO of Soapy, is with us on the panel today. And Soapy is providing extremely interesting solution when it comes to hand hygiene and preventing infection-related diseases and fines for the hospitals. And today we have an extremely diverse panel from India and USA. Max will be moderating the panel. He'll be asking some really interesting questions on affordability innovations in the healthcare space. And then we'll have a very fascinating roast session. Now, without further delay, Max, may I request you to do a brief intro of Soapy, and then I would request our panelists to do an introduction of themselves, please.
Pankaj, thank you very much. Great opening. And first of all, thank you for everyone who has joined. Soapy is a clinically tested frontier technology that helps healthcare facilities to reduce their infections, hospital-associated infections or healthcare-associated infections. And on top of that, as a result, we can call it a side effect. They're also seeing a lot of savings in their running costs, and of course, saving life or preventing potential risk of life in healthcare environment. We are here since 2018. We work in several countries around the globe. Our main markets is, of course, the United States, Israel, where everything started, Europe, and South Asia. And I'll be happy to jump into presenting the panelists that we have over here. So maybe we can start with Puneet and then go through everyone else. Thank you.
Hi, Max. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks, Pankaj, for inviting me. I am Dr. Puneet Ahluwalia, and I am basically Director and Head of Uro-Oncology and Robotics at Medanta Hospital in Gurgaon. And I deal with mainly treating the cancers of urological system. And that's about it. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. David?
My name is Dave Finkelstein. I'm the Chief Information Officer at River Spring Living. We're based in the Bronx, New York, and we provide long-term post-acute care healthcare services with a skilled nursing facility, assisted living, independent living, home care, and managed cares for 18,000 New Yorkers every day.
Thank you very much, David. Uday? Hi.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you, Pankaj, for getting me on to this conversation today. Thank you, Max, for being there. My name is Uday Davda. I head the Apollo Hospitals in Bangalore, one of the units. I've been with healthcare for about 25 odd years and working more on now in the tertiary care and the quaternary care. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it's great to have a very diverse panelist, and hope I will meet the expectations with some of the questions that I have. So if that's okay, I would love to start with probably one of the questions that we hear a lot in the market right now, and it's repeating not only in the United States where I'm based off, but it's also we hear that in Italy, we hear that in Spain, we hear that in India, we hear that in Singapore, in leading countries in healthcare. And the question is, what is the reason that caused healthcare to be so expensive today? And we see that challenge even getting bigger and bigger in almost every country. So healthcare is not becoming more cost effective for the end user. It's actually becoming more and more expensive. And the question is, from your experience, from your perspective, from where you are, why is that happening? And David, if that's okay, to put you on the spot, it will be great if you can start.
Sure. So from our perspective, labor, which is the most important component of healthcare, is very expensive. We're in the New York City area, so labor unions are a big part of what our expenses are. We rely very heavily on state and federal governmental funding through Medicaid and Medicare. We haven't seen a Medicaid rate increase for 14 years, even though our staff well deserved and have received salary increases every year in the last 14 years. So the margins are very, very thin. So we have to look at technology and we have to look at tools to be able to make ourselves more efficient and effective, to take the scarce dollars and distribute them so that we can serve the patients in the best way that we can.
Wow. Well, that's very unique to know that Medicare has not changed in 14 years. That's kind of
Medicaid,
insane with all what's going on in the Medicaid, sorry.
Medicaid, which is the state program.
Right.
Yes.
That's more than just interesting. I'm curious if labor-related challenges are similar in South Asia. Dr. Puneet, I know that you're leading surgical department. Do you see the same things happening?
So I think, Max, the two components of the affordability or the cost for a healthcare are, one, the usability of the healthcare services, whether we are talking about the administrative tasks, whether we are talking about the salaries of doctors or the staff. And the second component is, a particular technology coming in, new technology coming in, or probably new treatment coming in, or the drug cost, the objective cost of a particular treatment. So either of these things increase, the cost is going to go up. So in India, I was reading an article a few days back, which said that there was a lot of administrative costs or administrative waste, if you can call it, in US, which leads to baffling increase in the cost of. So if I have to give you an example, we get a lot of international patients who are from developed countries as well as from the Gulf countries. If a robotic surgery I'm going to do it here, it costs around $7,000 or $8,000. The same surgery is going to cost in US probably 4 times. The cost of the equipment is almost the same. The equipment is coming from US. It's the treatment which we are providing is almost the same. I'm going to discharge a patient probably in the similar time, and I'm talking about obviously top-notch good hospitals in India. I'm not talking about the tier 2 or tier 3 cities. So still, the world-class facility, if you get it here, and the costs are comparatively lesser as compared to the costs in US. If you talk within India itself, then there is a huge gap. In a smaller city, there might be lesser facilities, lesser administrative costs, but then the better treatment may not be available. The cost might be lesser, but the quality of the care might go down. But the government is coming out with insurances to general population. There is an insurance program, so which covers up to a particular amount, so that people can go and avail these treatments in a better hospital, bigger hospital where the facility. So either of those two components will probably leads to a increased cost.
Increase. So just to summarize that, what you're saying is that administrating cost of running an operation increasing over time, that will increase in time the cost of the treatment for
Yeah, absolutely.
the
You're going
patients.
to require more manpower. Probably, if even if you are going to automate the administrative tasks, even if you're going to use telemedicines, all these are the things with which you can probably reduce costs. But right now, at least in India, these are the factors.
It's very interesting. I already have a question about it, but I want to keep it for the next round. But I'm curious if in Apollo Hospital, and it's a major organization, and I know that it's there is very diverse healthcare facilities in Apollo. But if I'm right about that, do you see similarities to what the other panelists just described in Apollo different facilities, or it's facility by facility?
Yeah, so Max very rightly summarized by Dr. Puneet about the cost rising. And additionally, if you see, the cost of obsolescence is also to be added because technology is changing very fast. And if you have to give world-class treatment, you also need to upgrade the technologies. And as you upgrade the technology, there's a cost involvement. Apart from the other things, I'm sure the cost of the consumables that we really look at in doing any of the surgical procedure is also going up, and especially after the COVID season. And the cost of real estate. So I think, if you take all these things put together, the cost of treatment is rising. It is not, people say that it is becoming unaffordable for certain classes of people. But nevertheless, insurance is covering, government is also putting in a lot of efforts. But yes, I second the thought of Dr. Puneet saying that the cost is going up, added with the cost of obsolescence of the technology, cost of real estate that we really look at it, apart from the cost of consumables and manpower. And we see this across all our units, not only in Tier 1 cities, even in Tier 2 cities where we have operations, we see that the costs have been going up.
Thank you for this. This is unveiling another question that I have. And I know that real estate in India and in the United States is growing, the cost of it. I know that the structures of healthcare facilities in India and the United States are a bit different in terms of real estate. I know that in India, it's closer to renting facilities to clinicians and professionals, at least from what I know, and maybe I'm very wrong about that. While in the United States, the healthcare system is actually owning everything, and they hire in everyone as being part of the system. Am I wrong about what I'm saying and the differences, or not?
Well, there are various models in India. I think there are a lot of models that we really look at is where the place is taken on rental, on a long lease by the hospitals, or it is owned. So you buy out the properties and then do the complete hospital is done up. So there are various models that work, but I'm sure the kind of model that you're talking in the US is also available in India, where the clinicians come in and join a hospital, and on the other side they also have renting out of the space. So there are various models that work in India.
I think, Max, for the bigger cities and the bigger brands or bigger chain of hospitals, they usually own the hospitals. The smaller, if suppose I have to say that for a particular hospital chain, the flagship hospitals in the bigger cities, they usually own it, and then they have full-time employees. And if they have to provide care to the patients in probably smaller cities where the feasibility of building a hospital or the profitability is not there, so then they might rent out some space and have some outstation OPDs on giving healthcare facilities at that. So that would be rental. So this is for the bigger chains. And if the smaller hospitals, usually like Uday rightly said, there are various models for smaller cities. Now there are private nursing homes, and then 100-bedded hospitals. We usually sometimes start on place on rent, and then they can buy it out like that.
Right. I think
But for the bigger cities,
Thank
for the bigger cities and for the main corporate hospitals, it's actually the similar thing what you said is there in US. Yeah.
Right. Typically in the US, most of the facilities are provider, owner, and operated. In the post-acute long-term care space, though, we tend to outsource many of the clinical specialties to third parties, like the radiology and the pharmacy and the laboratory. We tend to bring in third parties to operate those areas and we provide the core physician and nursing services.
So it sounds like there is a lot of similarities between the different markets and different geographies and countries. It leads me to two questions, and I'll try to combine them into one. I'll go with the two questions, and then I'll summarize that into one question. The questions go is, what can we make? How can we create cost savings, right? Because it sounds like we have things that we can control and we can't. Like, for example, real estate usually is controlled by real estate market and the banks, so we can't really do anything with that. We need just to play with the rules of the game, and nothing really can. Nothing can really do over here. Manpower, because of the competitive and the need of more healthcare professionals, the manpower is rising accordingly to that. I don't remember, at least in my life, maybe you do, when manpower actually really decreased over time and not increased in terms of wages. So it sounds like those two things we can't really do anything. And then I'll combine the second question isn't the role of technology is actually to help us kind of mitigate those increases of cost on our day-to-day operations, and at least maybe not really decrease the cost of healthcare, but at least kind of align it to what it should be without having a big increase. And at the same, and this is I'm summarizing the question, but at the same time, you're saying that technology maintenance, consumables, upgrades is part of the cost or part of the component. It's a component that increasing the cost of health. So don't you see a kind of a dissonance over here from bringing in technology that should help with health and cost effectiveness, while at the same time it's increasing? Uday, maybe you can start from a Polo perspective.
Yeah, I think very rightly said, technology should help us, but then you can't replace the complete manpower that you really look at through technology. At the Apollo hospitals, I think we've been doing a lot of things where we've automated a lot of our processes, thereby optimizing the manpower cost. We don't cut our manpower cost at all. We don't ask anybody to leave the moment that we get the technology. We actually retrain them and reposition them within the organization. We are an ever-growing organization, and never ever we have kind of downsized our manpower. So we use technology and we optimize our cost. At the same time, there's something else that we really look at on the cutting of cost. I wouldn't say cutting of cost. Again, I would say optimizing our cost. So there's a project that we run called War on Waste. It's called WOW project. And wherever we see there's a lot of wastage that is happening, we tend to optimize the cost. So these are the combinations that we use. Technology is a big yes for us. We always look at newer technologies which can actually help us, not only from optimizing our manpower, but at the same time, giving the best possible care that could come in for our patients, and the safety aspects, which are very important for our patients. So that's from the Apollo perspective that we look at in India.
Uday, thank you very much. I want to continue, David. If I know the facility that you're working, I know River Spring, I know how many technologies you have over there. And I even remember that we once had a conversation that you can, in some cases, show an ROI or an improvement of probably affordability using some of the technologies. Maybe you can share a bit about that, because I know that you have actual experience of how that works.
Sure. One good example is an AI-powered robot that we employed into our physical therapy gym called Zero G. So in the old world, before the robot, a patient may come to us after hip or knee replacement surgery, need to come for us for 3 or 4 weeks of short-term rehabilitation. They'd come down to the gym in their wheelchair. We'd need 2 therapists to assist them to learn how to walk again, and how to be weight bearing again, how to really retain or regain their mobility. We implemented Zero G, which is a ceiling mounted track robot with a harness. The resident will go into the harness. The harness can take up to 40% of the body weight off of the resident. And instead of having two therapists side by side walking with the resident, we need one therapist. So we reduced our labor cost. And the robotic and the AI learning will learn each individual resident's methods of walking and modalities, will prevent them from falling. If they do, it does sense that someone is falling, it will pull them back up using the tethered rope onto the robot. So what we've proven is not only have we reduced the number of therapists to provide this, the resident has the confidence of trying things they maybe would not normally do to get themselves better, as well as get them to 100% pre-surgical status faster. So instead of being in the facility for 28 days, they may be in the facility for 21 days. So reducing the healthcare system costs by 7 days. We're getting the resident back to their home faster, and we're making it a safer environment, preventing them from falling during their relearning these activities. So it's just one example of how we used technology, which was an expensive investment, but it saves time and it has a better customer service and a better patient outcome as a result.
Sounds amazing. And I saw the robot, never tried it, but I saw it, and it really looks amazing. So definitely something to look at. And I'm happy to say that it's a robotic technology. And Puneet, I know that you have quite a lot of robotic technologies in the surgery environment. And from my understanding, at least from my background, I know that is also helping to utilize human power and make difficult surgeries more efficient in time as well. So maybe you can share about that as well.
So yeah, Max. So robotic surgery, if you if I have to explain it for a layman, it is basically the man behind the machine. It's not for anyone listening. It doesn't mean that robot is going to do the surgery. It means it's a tool. You can imagine it as an technological advancement of laparoscopic surgery, be it the magnification of the vision, be it the ergonomics, be it the instruments, what we call endorest of the instrument. So in difficult quadrants of a human body where we are going to operate, so this makes it more preciser. This makes it more safer for the patient. The bleeding is less. The recovery time is faster. We don't imagine I'm doing a robotic prostatectomy, for which the robot was invented and is mainly being used around the world. So 15-20 years back, there are good open surgeons, and with all due respect to them, 15-20 years back, when this surgery was mainly done by an open surgeon, an average open surgeon, it involved a lot of blood transfusions because prostate is deep in the pelvis. It involved a lot of ICU care, a lot of days in the hospital. So now we typically discharge the patient in 24 hours. We don't require an ICU for this.
Wow.
We don't even I don't know whether you know it or not. US, they are publishing papers of making it as a daycare surgery. We have not been there right now. Even that is still, not the standard. But yes, 24 hours is very much there. I have myself discharged those patients. We don't require any ICU care. The patient, after 4 hours, he can eat normally, walk, and no blood transfusions are required. So now, like Uday was saying, of course, there is a price to be paid for that. The technology procurement, the robot, it's not a cheap machine. It's a expensive machine. But if you see the quality of the care which is provided to the patient, if you see the number of days lost or the complications, if you evaluate the whole data, so probably in the long run, it is saving much more work days lost. It is preventing a lot of complications. The idea is how you use it, where it is indicated. If you are using it's profitable. If you're using for just for because it is available and you want, it's a fascinating tool for people. It looks like, oh, is a robotic surgeon, so it's a big surgery, or it's a best surgery. So for some surgeries, it may not be that advantageous. So not using that and preventing escalated cost in those surgeries as compared to using efficiently where it is required. So it helps in that.
Thank you. That was very insightful, and it sounds like, if I summarize again, this question is, if we use the right technology, then we can improve time efficiency on two sides, providing the healthcare that is needed, and also letting the patient go back to their life faster than it was, years before we started to implement smart technologies. We have better efficiency on using human resources inside healthcare, as long as they are educated enough to use the technology that we are planning to use, right? And in the right use cases. And which is, I think, the most exciting thing, at least for me, as maybe in future patient, hopefully not, but maybe, you have less complications. So using better technology in the right way, with the right education and the right human resource, you actually get better healthcare. And from what I hear from you, we can also say that there is a cost-related component that is actually making healthcare potentially more cost-effective in the future, which is, I think, one of the most exciting things right now, just to hear on that panel. But I do have still a question, because there is a big component of education of the individuals, the clinicians, the technicians inside healthcare, and that education is also a costly part of healthcare today, right? We need to bring everyone in healthcare to the point they actually can use the advanced technologies that are evolving in the market. So what is the role of caregivers, right, or the healthcare providers, or even the healthcare systems, how to manage that human resource they have or need to have in a more efficient way to make it cost effective? It's not that we can educate now someone for 10 years to use a surgery robot, or for 5 or 10 or 15 years to use a rehab technology. It takes a lot of time. So do you think there is a way to make maybe caregivers more educated upfront, or should we continue and waiting for 10, 15 years until they are the right position to join in forces? Yes.
Yeah, so you want me to answer? Okay. So, Max, as far as clinician is concerned, like I am a specialist, so as far as specialists are concerned, so the background knowledge is already there. Once you are into the practice, the background knowledge is already there, that what is the right treatment for a particular patient, right? So, once you come into the practice, there are a lot other things which you need to see apart from the bookish knowledge which you already have. Like if you're seeing a patient for the first time, then before providing healthcare for that patient, you need to assess what is the health status of that patient, right? If I have to say that if a patient is diagnosed with probably a localized cancer, if the patient is going to be treated, curatively treated with for that cancer with probably a surgery for which he might require a hospitalization of a day or two. But on the other hand, the patient is a comorbid patient, and his overall health status is like his performance status is not good, and he's going not to is not going to live too long, and that cancer is not going to cause any harm to him. Because of your background knowledge, you already know that in probably 6 months or 1 year or 2 years, it's better to leave that and not offer a morbid treatment, which obviously may have some complications at least. So first evaluating means a clinician should evaluate the health status of the patient. Then discussing with the patient what are the goals of the patient, what the patient wants to achieve, whether he wants to achieve a prolongevity of life or whether he wants to achieve a good quality of life. So sometimes both of them don't go hand in hand. So accordingly, you should have your treatment plan. Considering both of these things, then you should offer you should have an informed discussion with the patient, and then formulate a treatment plan. So I think if as a whole, if you're talking about the care for a patient, all the clinicians and all the caregivers, even the primary caregivers, have to look into these 2-3 steps and then formulate a plan for the treatment. If you are asking me for a specialist care, if you're asking me about the education or the surgical skills required, to prevent complications in surgery. Surgical skill required is not a short learning of it. Sometimes it is a long learning curve, and surgeons usually acquire skill and over a longer period of time, and they tend to take longer as compared to their physicians or non-surgeons counterpart. So providing care to the patients with supervised, that's a whole training which you go through. So providing care to the patients with the supervision, and then expecting better outcomes, and obviously the outcomes are better if you go through that. So I would say these are the things which one should keep in mind.
Thank you for that. That's very interesting, because it sounds like whatever technology is coming in the next 5-10 years, we're still going to have a lot of a lot of people actually continue to work in healthcare, helping each other to be better, continue the interaction between the patient and the clinicians or the nursing team, etc. So, David, I hope I can again refer that question to you, because again, I know the facility and I know it's big. It's an amazing facility and very innovative. How you see that educational part go hand in hand with all what the new things that you are trying and even mostly deploying in the facility?
So I'll take this from a little bit of a different perspective, but one of the things that we do is when we look at a system and decide to possibly trial it or pilot it before we use it, we lean on the vendor, the manufacturer, the company that's providing it. It has to be simple to use and easy to use. It cannot be something that requires one of our clinicians to go to school for 6 months to be able to learn. For the zero-G robot that I talked about earlier, we visited another facility. We took our therapists to talk with therapists in that facility to make sure that they can adopt that pretty well here. And we did that before. In other technology projects, we have really a concept of piloting before we go live. You have this first-hand experience with Soapy. We have, I think, maybe close to 15 or 20 devices across the facility, but we didn't start out that way. We started out with 2. And after we were successful with 2, then we had another 2, and then we had 4 more. We wanted to make sure that the technology works, the vendor and the provider and the equipment work, and that the staff can adopt it. We put electronic vital signs cards up on all of our units, which may be standard in many of the hospitals, but not in long-term care. In the old-fashioned days of long-term care, you have a manual blood pressure machine, you have a manual thermometer, you have manual taking pulse and respiration. We brought in carts that would take all those vital signs simultaneously and instantaneously transmit them to the medical record. We didn't buy the 50 of them up front, we bought 2. And after we were successful in training, and we transitioned that from an RN having to do those vital sign collections to a nurse's aide. So we actually freed up the nurse for their time. But after we put in 2, we had some issues. We had blood pressure results that were not as accurate that we thought we did. We found out it was training on how to put the cuff on, how to take the readings correctly. So we corrected that. And before we went to a full-scale deployment, we make sure that our pilot is successful. We're getting the ROI, we're getting the reliable equipment in here before we roll it out to the entire facility.
So in some way, you're saying keep it working, make it good, simple, and in some ways stupid simple, right? To make sure that everyone can really operate it.
Right, the KISS principle.
Yeah.
Keep it simple and stupid.
I love that. Uday, how you see all of that happening in Apollo facilities?
Yeah, I think we are on a similar line, as David mentioned, saying that we use a lot of technology, and apart from that, it's not only completely dependent on technology, we also use the human intervention, and there is definitely a long learning curve in every technology that you bring in. So you can't actually replace the manpower, but then at the same time, make them perform much better than what they were doing. So today, when we really look at, the remote monitoring of the vitals, then it's easier for us to manage it. The nursing ratio could be a little better. Earlier we would have 1:6, and now we could even go up to 1:8, 1:11. So these are areas where technology interventions are very important, and they are helping us. They're aiding us actually to take care of the patients better. That's one part of it, which is the most important part. And secondly, we are also able to optimize the manpower that we have. So, and yes, we also try this in phases. We don't, get technology to be dumped at once, because you can't really take everything at one go. So we try out in phases and then implement in various areas. And then we start doing that at the other facilities as well. So there's one area where we try it, and then if it works well, then it goes to the other areas, the critical areas, and then it moves on to the other units, and it's replicated across. But yes, we really feel that human intervention will continue. You'll have to keep training your manpower. You'll have to upgrade them. You'll have to upskill them and utilize them in the best way that's possible.
Thank you for that. Dr. Puneet, do you want to add anything, or yes?
Yeah, I think Max, like David and Uday both said, the healthcare as such has different dimensions. The technology, coming in bigger hospitals, and whether it's a vital monitoring, whether it is nursing care, whether it is patient screening, whether it is patient ward care, everything, you can actually bring in technology and in with the aim of reducing costs, improving quality, all those things. And these things, it is easier for the healthcare professionals to learn. So once you learn it, the learning curve, I'd probably say, is not that much. You can learn within days, and you can start using that technology, and then you can optimize your manpower. From where I come from, in the field of surgery, like I'm doing a robotic surgery, I'm doing a open surgery. The anatomy of the patient is the same. The procedural steps are the same, but the way you are doing it is different. The learning curve is different. You cannot learn a robotic surgery with you bring in a tool and then you expect a doctor to do a robotic surgery the next day. It is not possible. The person who has not learned it properly through his education, that was what I was trying to say, that if you're going through a particular system in your training where you have already learned it, like I did a fellowship for 1 year of robotic surgery, and then I started doing robotic surgery. I had done one step hundreds of times in a particular surgery under the supervision of my mentor, and then you do it and then you learn it. But what about if you the surgeons who are already there, who are busy, who have a busy practice, this technology is coming in, and patient wants to operate with the robot with this new tool, with not not having much of experience. So there comes the role of proctors and mentors and like that. So there's no learning never stops. So if you have to provide good quality care to that, so apart from this technology coming in the wards, in the ICUs for the monitoring, for the surgical care, also this technology is coming in, and you are bound to use it, and that is the future. But how you are going to adopt it, there should be a proper way for it, for better patient outcomes.
Puneet, thank you very much for clarifying that. By the way, I'm myself coming from medical science background, so I do remember the ongoing training again and again and again until you're not even thinking anymore, you're just executing the practice that you're supposed to know. So I really understand what you're talking about, and I assume because of the wide range of things that are implemented in healthcare, starting with protective equipment, ending up with surgical equipment that is robotic or controlled by man, and maybe in future not just controlled by man, but operating things by itself. Because of that wide range of things that we implement today, it sounds like there is different types of learnings that we need to have within healthcare environment, right? And some of that maybe one day we'll get into schools, into medical schools, and we'll see medical schools training the future surgeons doing robotic surgeries instead of training that in a healthcare facilities where they start to work and do the internship. So I assume what you are saying is that there is different type of implementation of technologies that need to happen in healthcare, different type of education. But I think there is a similar narrative from all of the comments that we just heard. And that narrative is whatever that education process is, it should be effective, simple, and as short as just possible, to make sure that we can actually implement that, not in many, many years from now, but almost tomorrow, right? So, and you're right, probably robotic surgery will take more time to educate the new technicians or clinicians or surgeons versus even hand hygiene technology. But in both cases, that process needs to be as short as possible without losing
That's
quality.
really happening now, that in last 10 years, the lot has changed. If we were to have this discussion 5-10 years back, then, many of the doctors wouldn't be knowing what we are talking about. But even in India, in US already it is there. There are, I think, 4,000, 5,000 robots, and in every major hospital,
Yes.
multiple robots are there. In India also now there are more than 100 robots. And in medical schools, training they have incorporated that into their training. So a lot has changed in last 5 years. I think Uday is there. So the Apollo Hospital also, they have multiple hospitals in India, and most of them have the robots. So all the major hospitals have it. And now there are actually multiple players also coming in. Initially there was one company, now
Right.
other companies are also coming in. So again, there is a competition in reducing the costs for that. So that's a good sign, but yeah.
It is. It is a good sign.
Yeah.
So I think the last question that they have is in some way summary of everything that we discussed, and it's something that we hear more and more those days, and that's value-based healthcare system. So some kind of transformation from the healthcare systems we know into value-based. We hear more of that in the United States. We hear a lot of that in South Asia and Europe. I would love like to hear from you your perspective on the pros and cons of having a healthcare system that is value-based, from the perspective of cost effectiveness, of making sure that we are not losing quality, but at the same time not suddenly making that more expensive than it is today right now. Puneet, if you're okay to start, that will be great.
So yeah, in India right now, what we have is mainly so value-based essentially means you are caring more about the outcomes and the quality of the service which you are providing to the patient, and then you are getting incentivized based on that, right? So in India, essentially what we have right now is a fee for service sort of model, where a patient comes in, and then a patient suppose has an insurance, and then you do the procedure for the patient, and the insurance company pays for it. So it is basically for the hospitals and for the caregivers, it's basically the number of procedures or the amount of treatment you are doing, and then you're being paid for it. So value-based is in that it is a patient-centric treatment, in which ideally it should be value-based, because you tend to give more care and all-around care to the patient. You analyze the data for the patient. Everyone across the hospital or across your healthcare organization has that access, and ultimately utilizing that, you give a better care, and the outcomes are much better. And once the outcomes are much better, the work days lost are lesser, and then the hospital or the healthcare providers are incentivized based on the outcomes rather than the number of the procedures they're doing. But there are a few things which needs to be done before we have a value-based system in place, especially in India. Like in US, you have probably a more of a organized system, where you may have a more of a data analytics and data is there, from which you can analyze. You can analyze what is the sort of healthcare being given to the patient, what are the outcomes of the patients, and how a particular surgeon, or you can trace the patient's journey through it. And then you can I feel still a little bit difficult analyzing whole of data nationwide and making the insurance to a value-based system. But in India, where the data is only very few, we are keeping our data for our hospitals. So registries nationwide, and for the insurance to change to that is the new benchmark for the insurance company, by the way, value based. But it is not still there in India, not at all. I have not seen one insurance which is being reimbursing based on the value based system. So having a good data and it also, adds on a bit of pressure to the caregivers, especially doctors who are at the center of providing care, because if their outcomes are not that good, and then the onus comes on to them. So I think these are the things. Still, it is not there in India. It is not easy to change into value-based from fee for service, but that is the way to go. Probably it may take some time, but that is the goal. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Thank you. David, I know that before you reply, I do want to add another layer to this question for you, if that's okay. And there is an extension of assisted living from what it used to be to younger age, and creating more value for people in probably much younger ages than we were used to see in assisted living facilities. How is that linked to the value-based healthcare system? Because that's an extra layer, an extra value that we are creating for them. I hope I'm correct with my partially assumption, partially question.
Let me get to that. I guess secondary, but in the U.S., it's really the ACOs, or the accountable care organizations, which try to use population health and take a population, take a particular diagnosis or a regional area, and cohort those patients and try to see how the providers in that ACO or that group perform. And there are financial incentives for reducing length of care and better outcomes, and there are disincentives or penalties for not doing that. While there's lots of fits and starts, there are a number of demonstration projects in various parts of the US. We have not seen true dollars be associated to this and true use of this. It's a good theory, but we haven't seen it in practice here in the US, at least from our perspective. We're partnering with a number of different large hospital systems in the New York City area to do this, but nothing has gotten to the point where it's true cash or true value in this accountable care. At least in the US, assisted living, there's really two different types. There's the government-funded Medicare, Medicaid assisted living, but most of the marketplace is private pay. So it's basically out of pocket, either with private insurance or private funds. So I don't see how that kind of group purchasing or that type of arrangement would work differently or in that portion of the healthcare spectrum in the US.
Makes sense. Uday, do you have anything to add over here?
I think in India primarily, and I think this part of the world, it is primarily a value-based treatment. When we talk about value-based treatment, what do I mean by value-based? Value-based treatment means basically doing the right thing for the patient. Yeah. Let me just take that with an example. One of our units, we have the birthing boutiques across India that we operate. And then we decided saying that we will have the same pricing, either it is a C-section or a normal delivery. So that gives the belief to the patient saying that we would not take up the patient for C-section unless and until it is required for the best interest of the patient. So I think to a large extent, healthcare is all about personal relationship and personal relationship over the values that the individual healthcare provider gives. So value-based system is going to leave, and it's the future as well. Yes, data analytics will give you a lot of insight into the care that we're going to give as we move on from here. But value-based care is something which is very, very important.
Okay, that's very, very clear and interesting to see that. We do understand that we need to get there, but it looks like there is no yet a clear path how we get to that point, right? And it sounds like it is still a theory, but not yet a real practice. Okay, so thank you very much for all of that. I think that it's not that I'm out of my questions, but we're out of time. I have many more questions to ask, and I'll be happy even maybe to send some of them to you personally, as I do have things that I would like to learn more. But I would like to summarize some of the conversation with a couple of points that maybe we can take away from this. One of them is, it sounds like whatever technology is coming into healthcare, people still going to be a critical core component of the healthcare system today, tomorrow, and many years ahead. We don't see even slight signs of this is changing, which means whatever is happening in the future, we still need to continue to make sure that everyone is educated properly, that they're exposed to that technology, and that we are not creating extra burnout, but actually supporting their day-to-day and helping them to practice health properly for the patient and the quality of outcome. Technology, as part of that, should continue to be developed with several very important components to make that efficient for the human resources that are going to practice it, to make sure that we are creating more efficiency on time for the patients and for the healthcare givers without compromising quality, and trying to make it more simple and not more difficult. And I hope that's a good enough summary. And I want to add something that was Dr. Puneet, you added in between the lines. Data and good data is critical and important to make healthcare good in future, and that's through all the border, through all of it, like from just a clinic that you go to see and say hi to the doctor because that's a good friend of you, up to a surgery and a long-term treatment that you need to get because of your age or because of unfortunate disease that you have. So data and good data will help us to actually get, maybe to convert the theory of value-based into something real, maybe, but it's critically important. Those are my takeaways. So I really appreciate for this open conversation. And Kaj, back to you if you want to summarize anything.
I think this has been a fantastic, very insightful conversation, Max. And I think you rightly said we could have gone on with this, for hours and hours because this is so insightful. But obviously, we'll have to move on to the next session of the event, and that is Rose session. And why we love having Rose session after the panel, because it's very difficult for the startups to get a very brutal, honest feedback from the subject matter experts, from the investors. These are the opportunities when we can essentially present a solution and get your brutal, honest feedback. And once we learn from your feedback, from the subject matter experts' feedback, then only we'll be able to improve and grow. So now Max will give a very brief pitch of the solution, and I would request everybody to be completely honest with your comments. Max.
Thank you. And yes, like any feedback, any insight is very helpful. I of course have a disclaimer. David Finkelstein and the River Spring facility is a client, and I know some of the. I hope to hear more feedbacks that I already know. It's always important for me. So I'll start, and I hope you can see my presentation going.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. So I will start with the result that we achieved in a variety of facilities, and we are seeing a major reduction in hospital-associated infections in a variety of use cases in different facilities around the globe, in Israel, in Europe, in the United States, in South Asia. We see an improvement in hand hygiene adherence, which actually a result of gamification of our technology. Performance of quality is improving. And all of that is around the challenge of the 5 moments of hand hygiene, the challenge that we are talking about, the very invisible practice that is happening in healthcare environment. We can't really put an observer on every clinician or on every nurse within healthcare environment, monitoring every single staff, and without creating an uncomfortable feeling of the big brother watching everything that I'm doing. So the core of that challenge is combined of a technology, a need, and a human interactions between management, patients, and the practitioners. At the same time, we all know for many years, for more than 200 years, that there is a high link, a very strong link between proper hand hygiene and infections happening in healthcare environment, hospital-associated infections. We know that while we improve hand hygiene adherence and improve quality of hand hygiene, we know that infections go down, and it's a straight one-to-one link between those two, including the improving quality, including improving events. I'm also happy to share that one of the 10 best hospitals global-wide, which is from Israel, Sheba Medical Center, presented last week in EBMT results of one of the projects that we had with them. And as you can see, they presented, we were not there, but they presented in a global international conference, a 54% reduction in hospital-associated infections, which is a major result. We were not expecting to see anything like that. I think they were not expecting to see anything like that. They were nominated as one of the 10 most important presentations during that event. But let me tell you how we achieved that, because bottom line, we are doing that through technology. And the technology, and I'll go back into some of the comments that you said during the previous session, we split that technology into two buckets. First, facing the end user. We try to make it as simple as possible to end user to practice proper hand hygiene, which means you have a device that will control the water and the soap or the sanitizer. It depends, you can utilize both use cases. You'll have a display that will actually show every single step that need to be executed for proper hand hygiene according to the different use cases, if it's general admission, if it's pre-surgery or clean environment, etc. And while the user is actually practicing everything, there are multiple sensors inside the device that are analyzing everything that is done with your hands. Gestures, it analyzes movements, I'll not get into specific details. If you want, I can, but it analyzes everything that you're doing with your hands to really understand if the quality is present, according to what is advised for that use cases. We are using real-time patented technology that analyze that at the point of use, and then provide that user a real feedback immediately to educate, to train, and to make sure that I know as a user that everything was practiced properly. In parallel to that, all of that information sent to the cloud and then go through cluster reports for locations, users, departments, facilities, brands, etc. So if that sounds a bit complicated, this is how simple it is. Okay, you go in, put your hands inside the device show how to do things. David, maybe you can recognize the location, but the device will actually show everything that you need to do and then give you a score immediately at the point of use before you go to your duties as a healthcare provider. So we are trying to create a gamification process, a positive, empowering process for our users. We are trying to make that transparent to them. We do have user ID reports if that is needed, and it's not always needed, but it's a possibility. GDPR compliant, you can have multiple different reports. What you see over here in this picture is actually a monitor that is placed in one of the departments. And that monitor is facing the users, the nurses, and the physician, and show them a list of champions. Who is the best in that department? So there is no managers that actually going and observing every single time you're doing something. There is a self-governance effect that is happening over here. You see quality, you see reports, you see scores, and you see who is the best. Everyone likes to be at the top of a best list. And if you're not in that list, it feels not good. So this is just to give you an idea how you're using data and quality data to shift things using culture and not just punishment or shaming. We are providing user feedback at the point of use every single time, every single cycle. That's creating a perfect coaching compliant hand washing or disinfection process. It's touch-free. You don't need to touch anything within the device, so it's preventing any potential recontamination. And there is a perfect hand washing process. So even the water is warmed for the user to the right temperature, which is 100 to 110 degrees, or if we go to Celsius, it's between 37 and 40 degrees Celsius. What happens at the back of the technology, which is patented, we have 4 patents on that. We were also received a seal of GBAC excellence, is that we analyze roughly 100 data points in real time. And we look at those data points compared to a variety of different studies and publications in healthcare environment. And we actually know that if you're doing specific movement, you're removing a specific layer of potential residues on your hands. So if you do all of those movements, you end up with clean hands. And those publications available for many, many years. We just aligned our technology to that knowledge. And we actually tested that with a variety of clients, was using swab tests and spectroscopy to really identify that your hands are clean at the end of the process if you do everything according to what you see on the display. You can also use those displays for a variety of gamifications. Gamification, positive empowerment, department-specific messages, educational messages. We have several facilities that actually retrain their teams using medical educational updates of what's going on, because it's 20 seconds or 30 seconds, you're standing in front of a display. Why not to deliver extra information to you? You can have sponsorship spotlights, donation spotlights, etc. on those displays. And you can have two types of units and two types of different use cases. You can have Soapy Pro, which is a wall-mounted device. So it's connected to water if you're using hand washing, or you just connect it to electricity and Wi-Fi if you're using that for hand sanitization. Or you can use the Soapy mobile unit, which you can install anywhere in the facility as long as you have electricity and Wi-Fi connection. It's up to you to decide. The most flexibility that we can is available for you to not say, we can't have this technology because we have infrastructure challenges. You can actually use it everywhere. Variety of different data structures within our compliance reporting system. You can go into trends, you can go into summarizing of quality, personal, non-personal, per week, per day, per month, per specific hour, etc. So you can really understand every single thing that is happening and learn from that for a variety of studies related to hand hygiene and infection prevention. We have clients that went through joint commission with our technology, with Ministry of Health audits with our technology. And we even can understand from the data changes in the department team. So a decrease or new teams coming in, we see a fluctuation of hand hygiene quality and adherence. And then we can see that within 2-3 weeks, everyone goes back to the track, even though 1/3 of the department changed, which is a major change in any healthcare department. So going back to education and simplicity, without training, you can see a team going back to where it's supposed to be almost immediately within a healthcare facility. I'll go back again to the results and use cases, going for adherence from 50 to 98%, seeing an actual behavior change, reports of the same nurses reporting that they are practicing same hand hygiene quality outside of the departments that where Soapy was installed, which is reducing HEIs also in other facilities and other departments. We have facilities that already crossed 4 million data points in understanding how hand hygiene looks on their side, just to give you an idea of how many data points you can get. Granularity is more than just amazing. We can understand if you're washing your left or right hand better. Okay, we can understand if you are washing your hands properly when you're tired versus when you just arrived to your work. And a variety of things if you are hurried on in stress, etc. So what I'm trying to show you over here, that we can use technology to make hand hygiene simple without compromising quality, reducing infections, and all of that just by helping the healthcare teams to be what they are trying to be. No one in healthcare is coming to their work with a thought, I'm bringing infection to my patients. It's just not happening. So I'll go into, of course, saying that we have certifications of a variety of things with our devices, quality and safety. We have multiple use cases, and we have different seals of excellence from European Commission, from GBAC and ISSA over here. And I'll probably summarize that with several quotes from our clients. Positive impact of gamification combined with personal feedback, continuous education and training have led to a positive behavior change. And this is the core of what we are trying to do. The moment you get there, you see the result, which is the hospital-associated infection reduction. And the moment that happens, that becomes an element in the department culture. The technology has led to increase in hand hygiene adherence also outside of the department. And this is again an effect of gamification culture change. We also have a variety of professionals that speak about us, and there are many technologies that can diagnose infections on hands. Soapy is a treatment. So it's not a post-event diagnostic that we need to discuss what happened, why it happened. It's something that helps to prevent that conversation. And preventing that conversation means better health, better treatment, and more cost-effective environment. Thank you very much. I hope I was not too tacky and geeky in my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer on any question.
Max, I think if I'm allowed to go ahead with that, I think this is something really very, very impressive, because a lot of our complaints come from the problem of HAI, and a lot of infection spreads through HAI, which is the biggest trouble that the hospitals today look at. How much ever training you do to your people, they still fail to do it. So I think this is something really nice that has been there. You've come up with it, and it should make a positive change in the lives of firstly the patients and then the caregivers, because the impact finally is going on the patients, and then equally the caregivers are infected as well. So I think this is something good, a real good technology. Just a few questions, as we move forward with this is you said it's only on the 19-bedded pediatric facility in the Shiva Hospital, but then what is the number of installations that you have in that small facility? That's my first question, because our hospitals, I'm sure, if you look at India, the hospitals are of, I'm sure in the US also, the hospitals are of real big sizes. And in India also, we have hospitals which are huge. So depending on how do you really manage to cover the whole hospital, maybe a 200-bedded facility, a 300 facility, or even bigger facilities that we have, which is about 2,000 beds. How do you really cover all of them? And the cost of installation is another question that we might have to answer. So over to you, Max.
Uday, thank you for the question. So the facility Shiva is, it was a department that we presented. It's a 3,500 bed facility, 3,500 bed facilities. The biggest facility in Israel. We have multiple use cases over there in multiple departments. One of them is discussed now that is going into 40 something different rooms and spread it on several different floors, and they will need to have multiple units on every floor. So on the pictures that I can actually show that again. So if you give me a second, I'll go to one of the slides. Here it is. You can see over here, this slide, you can see the installation that's going through the hallway from both sides. So behind you of that picture, you see more units. Then you have special entrances and clean entrances. So what I'm trying to say, the installation goes according to what you need. So if you say you want to have a unit per bed or a unit per room, we can do that. If you think that you need to have a unit per floor or 2 units per floor, we can do that. We will find with the engineering and the maintenance team of your department the best installation to drive the thing that we want to drive, which is culture change and then infection reduction within the facility. It's not hard as long as we have the conversation with the team from your side. And you can see on those pictures as well, we have multiple installations in a variety of use cases. We have ICUs, we have public restrooms in healthcare facilities. Right now, we're installing units in a dining area in one of the hospitals in Richmond in the United States, and laundry rooms in that same facility. What is not healthcare related in some way, but it is infection related. So what I'm trying to say, installation costs aligned with the volume of units. The more units you have, the less actually installation per unit goes. The same thing with everything related, trainings, education, and stuff. And we can do any type of use case within healthcare facility, and we proved that over the last 3 years. So I'll be happy to take this conversation maybe offline and discuss specific needs in Apollo, one facility or many facilities, and try to figure out how to do that most cost effective for you guys.
Max, I would like to ask something here, taking forward with this question. So there must be some, limitation of this unit where you can actually it can be used by a particular number of healthcare professionals? Is the water which is coming in is a part of it, or you need some installation of the water supply like that, or something like that, where you more than this number of healthcare professionals cannot use it? That is number one. So number two, I wanted to ask you again, based on all these limitations, the cost which they asked of per unit, that's a part of it. So another thing which I wanted to ask you was that this algorithms which you have fed in, although your presentation was very simple and very understandable, and it's a very good product, I would say. So I would like to get a little bit technical into this, the algorithm which you have fed in, and the results which your monitor is showing while you are gamifying it. So like in a hospital, you have different areas. You have wards, you have ICUs, you have operation theaters. The requirement of hand sterilization or hand hygiene in all these areas can be little bit different. If you're going into the ward, into the room of the patient, you just use a sanitizer and then see a patient. In ICU, you might need to be more cautious, because the ventilators are there, and hospital acquired infections are more commoner in ICU. In surgical theaters where you are going, so you need to be at the top of your game. You need to be totally, and it's not only the hands, it's up to the elbows. So the algorithm which you have fed into your into your system, which gives you the result saying that you are 100% right, you have washed your hands. So does that include or satisfy the requirements of a surgical theater or ICU also? Have you compared it with the swabs or cultures taken and then compared these results like that? Yeah, please.
So we have three questions over here. So I'll start with the first one, and thank you for that. The first one is number of users. You should look at that as you see a faucet in a pre-surgery facility, right? You usually have several faucets, and every user is standing in front of the faucet. You can't stand in front of two people using the same faucet at the same time. It's the same thing over here. How many users can use it one after the other? As many as you want. There is no limitation. But you have a limitation of, you need to finish your procedure first, and then the next user can start and finish that procedure as well. So in pre-surgery environments that we have right now, and we just started to do that, by the way, we have like the first client in that space. It started, I would say, 3 months ago, with great results, but it just started. They have multiple units standing one next to the other to make sure that you're not creating a bottleneck for entering the surgical theater. Going through that to the different use cases, we can utilize hand washing, which means water and soap, or hand sanitization using alcohol-based liquids or gels. We can do both. You need to set that up in the unit during the installation, and then it runs. The algorithm works accordingly to that, which means when you set up the unit, you set up the algorithm according to the use case that you're going to practice within that department, within that use case. So if you go to ICU, or if you go to long-term, or you go to the regular wards, EBMTs, sterile departments, step down, etc., you're setting up according to what you expect to have, or what is the regulation requirements for that department. I hope that I replied.
Excellent.
And then on the cost effectiveness, I would love to share the numbers offline and discuss, because there is a lot of parameters, as you saw, that we have several units, but there is a lot of parameters that we include when we offer the unit according to what you really need, and we are trying not to oversell. We don't like our customers to have something that they're not using. We will share all of the capabilities, and we come to a conclusion what you really need or not. We'll at least we are trying to do that. Hopefully, in most of the cases, it's successful. So if you want, I would be happy to have an offline discussion about that as well.
All right, so you could see, I guess, in his image here, the long-term care in the middle left is one of our facilities. We put them up on every single, I'll call it ward or nursing unit, where there's about 30 to 40 patients, in the hallways for the nurses to really wash their hands. And our thought is that the muscle memory, the using the machines here, you would use the same procedures when they're using a regular sink other parts during the day. They are also mobile devices that have self-contained water and drain with them, and we bring those over if we're having an event that we have a lot of visitors, or we have it in a coffee shop or things like that. So I think the mobile unit can handle, I think, 50 washes without having to be refilled. This is connected to building plumbing and water supply, so it's really unlimited. I think his soap dispenser has, what, 2,000 dispenses in it before the soap container needs to be refilled. So it's been, and one of the things he didn't really talk about is you'll see the amount of water use will be decreased and the amount of soap use will be decreased, because you're measuring this precisely for each wash, and instead of having the sink run for 30 seconds or 2 minutes as they're using their typical way of washing.
Yes, David, thank you for mentioning that. That's very true. We are trying to be very conscious with the resources that are used within our technology. Water scarcity, as we see it when we started, is a major challenge that is happening everywhere around the globe. Some want to admit it, the others are not. We think it is. So we are using 95% less water for each cycle than a regular sink or regular faucet. And we minimize soap waste by roughly 80-85%, again, because you don't press on the dispenser several times. You get the precise volume of the disinfection agent that you need. And you, again, set it up for the use cases or the use case that is needed right now, right there.
Great. So you have something like, on a lighter side, I'm just saying this. So something like a scanner or something like that to put your hands in and see that whether your hands are already clean or not. You are gamifying it too much, so the water you may use it actually when it is not needed. I'm just saying it on the lighter side. So you're putting it this in schools or somewhere where kids are using it again and again. So probably a thought.
So, Puneet, thank you for saying that. Exciting update from our side, Pankaj. I didn't have time to share that with you, but we reached 70 a bit more than 70 schools using our technology right now, mainly in India and in Taiwan. We have already thousands of kids, like many thousands of kids utilizing our technology. It's a great market for us, definitely needed. It's not the main target because healthcare is more intuitive, of course, and the challenges in healthcare are much bigger than in education. However, in one of the projects that we had, we proved that using our units in schools, and we have that project for more than 3 years running, we increased attendance of kids in schools by more than 10% year over year. So it's an amazing result. Okay, definitely because of hand hygiene, highly linked to Soapy. But that's a side of conversation. If any of you have any projects or social responsibility projects for supporting schools in your communities, please consider Soapy to be part of it. We will be happy. It's always an exciting project for us.
I think that's interesting to know, because at Apollo, we adopt a lot of schools under the Apollo Shine program. And, I could bounce this off to my colleague who manages that project for us, and we could look forward to working together on that also. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Any more questions? And I'll be happy to.
Or any word of caution for Max while he's pitching the solution to different hospitals in Southeast Asia or in India?
Space is going to be a constraint. So I'm not too sure what is the size, but as I see it, I think this occupies, a size of an ATM, probably. This is what I believe. And that's one area that we should look at. Is it possible to have this either wall mounted or installed in places where India is scarce of, especially the tier 1 cities and the metro cities where we don't have space. hospitals as well. So this is one area that you could really look at.
Yeah, so wall mounted, you can do that. You can see that in the ambulatory department picture over here. It's a wall mounted unit. The same was the facility where David is representing. It's a most of the units are wall mounted units. But yes, you can do that. And that's going back to one of the slides that I presented, that you have the entire flexibility of having the big unit, which is immobile, and then you can move it around without relying on rebuilding infrastructure, or you can mount the units according to an existing infrastructure and minimizing the space it actually captures. So thank you for that comment. That's an important comment. We hear that a lot. We don't see too many difficulties with it. It's just a question of engineering, a conversation with the engineering of the facility.
Yeah, we happen to be lucky to have a nook on each hallway where there used to be a water fountain that we had plumbing, we had water, and we had an indentation in the wall, so it didn't protrude too much into the hallway. So we got lucky there.
Yeah.
Interesting. I think those are some really cool feedback for you, Max. And I see really amazing enthusiasm for what you have built, the value that you have proven so far. So kudos for that. If there are no further questions, then again, I would really like to thank our panelists today for being part of this conversation, for sharing your insights. Obviously, your insights are extremely helpful, not only for Max, for myself, but also for the community at large. And people who are going to see this video later on YouTube, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, I'm sure they are going to reconnect with you or with Max for different, different questions and different comments. But again, really appreciate everybody's time today. And I hope that we can reconnect soon and explore synergies. If we can help you in some way, that would be awesome. And take it from there, right? Thanks.
Yeah, I want to say thank you as well for everyone to free their time. I know everyone is busy. And it's late in India right now. And David, I know you're usually very busy during the morning. So I really appreciate the time. So personal thank you. And I hope to continue speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, Max. Thank you, everyone.
Have a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.